Cody Bellinger returns to the Cubs. Does this make them the prominent favorite in the National League Central Division? Chicago Blackhawks retired one Legends jersey, while two future Legends made an impact on the actual game itself. Should we start court storming in college basketball? And we'll have a finale to our Old School TV Monday series saluting Black TV families. That and a whole lot more as Second City Sports, the Monday edition, starts right now. Welcome to the Monday edition of Second City Sports. We're live and in living color right here on Sports Soul Chicago, along with Mr. Ken McGee, which is she. I am Sydney Brown. Hey, that's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow my Keita McGee on the Twitter, X, at Kids Go Again, the IG.
Make sure you download the Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Please subscribe to our podcast. We are at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. While you're at it, please give War Media a follow at WARR Media on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinions during our 2-hour extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show, you can always look us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. But if you decide to troll and or do something silly, dumb, or stupid, I've given Lakina full powers to give you fools to be able to be a boot.
Toodles.
But before we begin, we must remind you that you can catch Sports Zone Chicago not now, but right now, live and in living color on Roku TV. That's right. So celebrate the squad and give it the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV. If you already have a Roku television, just tap on that sports folder and download that Sports Zone Chicago app. If you don't have a Roku television, but you have some handheld devices laying around, iPhone, iPad, iTouch, your Android, your PC, or your Chromebook like I'm using right now, just go to the Google Play Store and download that Roku TV app and access Sports Zone Chicago through that avenue. So no more excuses. Celebrate the squad and give it the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Live and on demand.
Anytime, anywhere.
And you know we will provide.
And we will be providing you in this last Monday of February here on Second City Sports. As Sid said, of course, we're going to dedicate to one of TV's top Black families as we cap off Old School TV Monday, Black Sitcom Families Edition. Also, too, should Court Story be banned in college hoops? We'll have some. I'm sure Sid will have some opinions about that, and so will I. And also, too, the stuff going on the court in college hoops. Bulls get a big win in the Big Easy. And the rest of the NBA, and of course, three legends. Two legends are one's already a retired legend, one that's going to be a legend, one that's hopefully will become a legend. Make a big impact in last night's game with the Red Wings and the Blackhawks. But first, some news that came on in the dead of night on Saturday night. I was not up; I was sleeping. I don't know about you, Sid, but some big news came down the pike in baseball involving the Cubs.
Yeah, Cody Bellinger, the outfielder and first baseman, formerly of the Los Angeles Dodgers. He joined the Chicago Cubs last season, made a big impact on the team. The Cubs came in one game of making the playoffs, but he was a free agent this offseason. And we talked about Lakina for the last couple of weeks on this show. When will Cody Bellinger sign with the Cubs or perhaps somebody else with a big agent, Scott Boras, on his hip pocket? Well, late Saturday night into early Sunday morning, the news came out that Cody Bellinger will be back with the Chicago Cubs for at least one more season. Yes, it's a 3-year deal worth $80 million, but Cody Bellinger has an opt-out clause within the first 2 years of the deal. So Lakina, technically, Cody is back for 1 year. If he has another monster year like he did last year, he can potentially negotiate for a bigger deal. I don't know what does this mean for him long term, but in the short term, the Cubs look very good on paper now. They look better on paper now. Barring any injuries, the target's going to be on their back, especially with the new manager Craig Counsell. They're going to be the favorites to win the NL Central.
Yeah, I think this line definitely kind of gives them the edge here over the Cardinals. I know some. Well, we'll talk about our divisional previews in the coming weeks, but yeah, this was definitely like a big signing for the Cubs. And also, too, you look at the numbers. I mean, he gets 30 million if he opts in for next season, and 20 million if he opts in for that final year. So they actually, were able to kind of get it just right. And yeah, Jed Hoyer definitely played this very well. And look, this was I think Bellinger realized that he wasn't gonna get that big, 250 million from the Cubs or anybody else for that matter. So I think he really felt like he had to come back in and all the Cubs, you saw Azolay's tweet, Albert Azolay's tweet, and also to Justin Steele's tweet, like, hey, what happened? But yeah, I mean, this is a big gift for the Cubs, and this definitely kind of like, look, I know people make fun of Jed for not doing, enough, but I think he definitely did this very well and played it very close, and yeah, was able to actually get a deal done, and also a very team friendly deal done.
I also listened to an interview with Pete Crow Armstrong, the young Cubs outfield prospect from the Chicago Cubs. He was on Hit and Run on 670 Score last Saturday morning with Bruce Levine and David Haw. And he was one of the questions that David was asked. But David Haw asked Pete was about how did the club go about their business. Well, Pete Crow Armstrong, I'm just paraphrasing him. He said the club was operating as business as usual. Of course, we all wanted Cody Bellinger back, but just in case he wasn't back, we had to operate as business as usual. We talked about Lakina, how they're working with Christopher Morel at third base because the Cubs still have a new third baseman by the end of spring training. We'll soon find out. But Pete Crow was talking about how generally everybody liked Cody Bellinger, not just as a player, but as a person. Now that he's back, you can expect morale around that clubhouse to pick back up again.
Also, yeah, definitely, especially with Dansby Swanson, they made a nice little tandem, 1-2 punch for the Cubs. They were kind of one of the reasons why the Cubs were right there in that division. So it was very, very, very like slick how they were able to do that. And look, if you saw if you heard some of the other Cubs comments, I mean, they weren't really distracted. They weren't too like worried about whether or not Bellinger was going to come back. They figured that something was going to have to happen. And this is kind of what happened there, and it'll be interesting to see what Scott Boras' other clients, what do they do? I mean, Matt Chapman, I know we had a buddy Jared Willis on from CHG. I know he feels that maybe Chapman probably wouldn't fit the Cubs, but look, Chapman's another guy that's very versatile, so maybe get him for kind of a similar deal, or maybe Blake Snell. I know the Yankees have shown some interest in him, so with Bellinger, he was kind of the biggest domino to fall among the Boras clients, and we'll see if the other, there's other fellow Boras Knights follow suit.
I think you can really make the case for the Cubs to really go after Blake Snell if you really want to, because we talked, like you mentioned, we talked about the Cubs' potential starting rotation, and it looks good on paper, but it wouldn't hurt to have Blake Snell there. Of course, he's the Cy Young Award winner last year when he pitched for the San Diego Padres. But I think the biggest concern, Lakina, for me, for the Cubs going into this 2024 campaign, the bullpen, like I said, Albert Alzolay, he's your closer, period, hands down. But the middle relief, your settlement, are your biggest concerns as far as pitching. On the other side, as far as offensively, I think Matt Chapman, for the right price, could fit this Cubs team. Now, is his bat still there? That's still in question, but the defense is still there. And Christopher Morel could be your utility guy. Forgive me, Sox fans, for saying this. He's your Leary Garcia. Just play him about 3 or 4 times a week. Injury happens, he's there for a while, not for a whole season. Tony La Russa. But I think that's the role that Christopher Morel will, in a perfect world, would fit on this team. He's your utility guy. We saw him play the outfield. He was good. And I know he's getting some run at third base right now. But if the Cubs sign Matt Chapman to a friendly type deal, I think they'll make Christopher Morel that much more important on this Cubs team because he'll become your utility guy.
Listen to Second City Sports on Chicago. Lakina McGee, Sydney Brown with you. Talking some baseball here as spring training is in the books. The worst week of actual spring training games are in the books. We'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, I'm with you, Sid. I think look, he could. I'm talking about Royal could definitely feed off of Chapman. A guy that can play defensively both in the infield and of course Bellinger being back, that definitely helps him as well. And like you said, so, I mean, the middle relief. I mean, I'm hoping the young guys that they can does their job. We know Mark Leiter Jr. had a kind of an up and down year last year as a setup guy. Maybe he put a little bit better. I know a couple other guys from the minors that they think maybe could make a big splash, and perhaps maybe with Craig Counsell's Tulish can kind of help him with that as well. So I think the Bellinger deal gives a big boost to that Cubs morale. No pun intended. And also even better, like look, if you get Chapman, like you said, for a nice team friendly deal, make a year with a lot of incentives, with an option for a second year, I think this will definitely help the Cubs a lot, and everything kind of has to come together.
Yeah, and for the Cubs right now, with the moves that Jed and Carter Hawkins have made over the last couple of years, they're saying to their fan base, "It's the time to win is now." We saw that with the removal of David Ross during the offseason, bringing in Craig Counsell, as I mentioned at the top of this broadcast. And also, too, they spent almost close to $300 million last year in free agency money. I know they scaled back a little bit because they were about Cody Bellinger, but you bring Bellinger back, you lose Marcus Stroman, but your pitching staff still looks strong. I still say that they could use an extra starter because, injuries can happen at any time, especially with these starting pitchers. But the most pressing needs, in my opinion, are the middle relief and third base.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll see if Jed Hoyer has another trick up his sleeve in these next week or two. Real quick, the Cubs beat the Sox in the first game of spring training for them. The Sox actually almost got no hits against the Mariners Saturday, but okay. Could be a long year for Sox fans, but I will say John Schiffer, the new TV guy, sounds pretty good with Stoney.
Yeah, he made his debut last Friday after we got off the air, and of course, you mentioned the Cubs and Sox played in their first preseason game against each other, and as we expected, Lakina, John Schiffer is a professional. He's going to do a professional job, and we all know that Sox owner Jerry Reinsdorf likes his broadcast to sound a certain way. Of course, they brought in Jason Benetti 8 years ago. He grew. They didn't like that. He was bigger than the team, and the Sox paid for it. But I want to see how John Schiffer grows into this role. He's never called an MLB game before. We just going to have to give him a chance, give him time. I want to see if he's going to be allowed to have a little personality. I know Steve Stone, if you read the stories that he was heavily involved in recruiting John Schiffer in getting that job. It sounds like him and Schiffer are going to have a nice rapport, which is nice to see. The play-by-play man is supposed to set up the analysts, and we all know that it's a lot of dead time in between pitches in baseball. Not so much now with the pitch clock, but that chemistry is going to take some time, like it did with Benetti and Stone. But I'm not going to sit here and say that John Schiffer is going to be the next Jason Benetti, but he's going to do a professional job, and we'll see what the actual Sox team do on the field to make him have those exciting calls.
Should be interesting I think they'll get better as the season goes on. It's a long season now. Our Illinois Governor Pritzker actually just made these comments about, of course, Jerry Reinsdorf lobbied for $1 billion in tax money for a new stadium. Governor Pritzker probably pretty much told him heck no. He said that. Well, I'm paraphrasing what Governor Pritzker said, but he say that the investment needs to yield a long-term return for the taxpayers that can justify in some way, and he hasn't seen it yet. So basically, what he's saying is, no, heck no. He's gonna do it in a very classy way. He's not gonna curse at you, but yeah, he's gonna shade you, but in a very nice way. So that's basically what he said to Reinsdorf.
Excuse me. As we said the last couple of weeks, Governor Pritzker, whether you like him or not, like I said, we're not a political show, so we're not going to talk about political issues, but he's stood by his word that we're not going to use public funding for private owners and who have private money, that they can have enough money to build their own stuff. So, and that's been our stance all along. So will Reinsdorf use the playbook of I'm gonna threaten to move the team down to Nashville or wherever? We'll see what happens. I was listening to 670 The Score, Lakina. They played a video from, I forgot who the person's name was. And I know I saw clips of it on YouTube over the week. I don't know if you've seen this, but this guy was explaining how all sports, all owners through professional sports here in North America have been using this playbook to get new stadiums in their counties and states all across this country, the United States. You know, if we don't get what we want from these politicians, from these politicians using public dollars, real threatening to move the team and all this and that. So is this thing over yet? No, this is just the beginning. We'll see what tricks that Reinsdorf has up his sleeve, because we know, we talked about this before too, the deal that he has now with the state of Illinois, with the park that they play in currently, he doesn't have to pay a damn thing on that stadium unless the yearly attendance is over 2 million fans.
Yeah,
he's not gonna get that again. I promise you that.
No, that's not going to happen. So we'll see. This could to be continued, as we say in these kind of things. We'll keep you guys updated on that. Then the Bears Stadium too, obviously. All right, so we're up against it, but yeah, we're going to take a really quick break, of course. We're going to talk some NBA as the Bulls get a big win in the Big East. Also, too, some interesting results over the weekend in the NBA, and a whole lot more to wrap up hour number one. Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown, Second City Sports, Sports of Chicago. We go to the NBA coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too. These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Susan going to work. Over
and
Robinson.
one.
Earl,
And one.
one.
Yeah, Robinson Earl that time.
Carter for a slipping Vucevic to the cup.
Nice play by Javon Carter.
Dosunmu wants to push. Gets all the way to the cup and scores.
Thank you.
Knocked it away. Ingram got it back and threw it away into the hands of Dosunmu, and an easy deuce.
Yes.
Vucevic got it back. Could not score. DeRozan's got it though, and he's going to walk it back out, and he'll fire it up.
Oh, Compton's finest.
And that was the highlights from NBC Sports Chicago, video courtesy of that, as the Bulls beat the Pelicans 114-116 last night. Welcome back to Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago. Lakina McGee, City Brown with you. You can follow my Lakina McGee on the Twitter, X, and Kiddos again, IG.
Always love and exciting Adam Amin and Stacey King. Those two sound great together, especially when the Bulls win. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80. We have less than 85 minutes or so left of this broadcast. We call it Sports Talk Radio Show. If you have any questions or comments for us, you can always find us at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comments section. Again, we'll get them up on the screen for you.
All right, Sid, all 5 stars were in double figures for the Bulls in their win over the Pelicans. DeRozan had 24. Ayo had 21. Vooch kicked in with 22. Kobe White didn't have his best showing from the field, but still managed 16 points. And as the Bulls hit some big shots late. Now, granted, the Pelicans did not have CJ McCollum, so they were able to kind of do what they're supposed to do there. So they're still a solid team. We will talk about the Pelicans, but the Bulls got a nice big win here.
Yeah, so you read all those statistics from our starting 5. 3 out of the 5 starters scored 20-plus points. That's what you need in order to succeed as a team, especially in the NBA. You mentioned Kobe White had an off night, but there was other stars that picked it up, like Alex Caruso, Ayo Dosunmu, as we've been raving about on this show for pretty much the whole season. He chipped in with 21 points last night, and he's actually starting to improve his shooting, including hitting 3 from 6 from the outside last night from 3-point range. That's nice to see from Ayo. Now with the injury to Patrick Williams, he's going to have surgery on his foot. He's the third guy is going to be out for this Bulls team. Zach LaVine's already out with the foot injury for the entire year. Now Patrick Williams follows LaVine in that front. Torrey Craig is still on the injury list because he injured himself doing a workout during the All-Star break. But this last half of the season, Lakina is going to be who's going to step up for this Bulls team. Like I said before, and I'll say it again, this is Kobe White's show. Everybody else is going to follow. You know what you're going to get from him night to night. You know what you're going to get from DeMar DeRozan from night to night. Let's see what Nikolai Vucevic does. Let's see what Andre Drummond does, the veteran coming off the bench. But I'm looking at the young guys like Ayo Dosunmu, Dalen Terry, even Julian Phillips. I'm looking at those last 2 guys that I mentioned, and Phillips and then Terry. They're going to get more playing time now since Patrick Williams is going to be out for the year. We said this back in late November, early December when Zach LaVine was out the first time. You saw the play of Kobe White, Patrick Williams, and Ayo Dosunmu pick up, and the Bulls were able to get back into the play-in tournament race. Now that Patrick Williams is gone for the year, let's see what Julian Phillips and Dalen Terry, they're going to get extended player time. What those 2 young guys are going to bring for this Bulls team.
Should be very interesting. They lost a tough one to Boston, but they were able to kind of bounce back with a win, of course, last night, and against the Pelicans. They do play the Pistons tomorrow. They've improved a little bit about the Pistons, so the Bulls shouldn't have trouble, but who knows? But it'll be interesting to see how the Bulls do these next couple of weeks. Now going into the rest of the NBA scope here, I watched a little bit of this game last night on television, not on the computer because it was on ESPN. But the Kings held off the Clippers 123-107. De'Aaron Fox had 33 points. It was really the 3-point shooting that was a big difference here. And just when you thought that the Clippers got down to something like 6 or 7, you look up, you're like, oh wait, they're up they're down like 12 or 13 again. So that was actually really one of the problems last night for them.
Yeah, and I saw some of that game too. The Clippers had their shooting woes and their issues, and whatnot. The Sacramento Kings, I know they're slightly off pace of what they did a year ago, where they were one of the surprising teams in the NBA. They actually did it on the defensive end last time. You mentioned De'Aaron Fox, who was an All-Star last year. Domantas Sabonis, we all know he's a beast inside. Malik Monk, who, in my opinion, should have won the Sixth Man of the Year award last year. He's making a difference for this team. Also, to Keegan Murray from Iowa, he's made an impact on this Kings team for the last couple of years. So we'll see if the Kings can get it on a roll here, because right now they're right in the middle of number 7, I believe, leading that pack for that play-in tournament in the Western Conference. So let's see if Mike Brown and crew can establish a little nice winning streak here to get out of that cellar.
Should be interesting. Charlotte, no trouble with Portland. Utah, again, no trouble with San Antonio. Nikola Jokic now has 80 points, 50 rebounds and 45 assists in a 3-game span. The only other player to do that was Wilt. So already on pace to perhaps maybe his third MVP in 4 years. No trouble with Golden State, 119-103. Klay Thompson had 23 points, probably his best game in a while. But again, too much Jokic for the Nuggets.
The Denver Nuggets, when healthy, they're a well-oiled ram machine. And you mentioned Nikola Jokic, he does his thing in the paint. Jamal Murray, I've been on his train since late 2018. And you see what happens when head coach Mike Malone challenges him. He takes his game to another level. We saw that last year in the playoffs when they ran through everybody to get to their first title in franchise history. When healthy, Jamal Murray is one of those shooting guards that you cannot touch in the NBA, and we're starting to see that now. So Denver, I know they're not taking the regular season as seriously as they did last year. It's all about them getting ready for postseason. On the flip side for Golden State, I think Klay Thompson coming off the bench will help this Golden State Warriors team. Draymond Green better stay on his best behavior, or else the Warriors will not have a chance to compete in the playoffs. Steph Curry, he's got to stay healthy as well, and they got to find a way to get Chris Paul back.
Well, and also Steph didn't have his best shooting, and only 1 for 10 for 3-point range. So yeah, that was probably another reason why Nuggets were able to beat the Warriors pretty handily. OKC, no trouble with Houston. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 36 points there. Atlanta with a big win against Orlando. This was without Trey Murray, because he's going to be Trey Young, I should say. He's going to be really valued in a few weeks with a knee injury. But the Hawks did get a nice win here against the Magic. They're kind of right there in the thick of it in that play-in.
If you're the Bulls, you better take care of your business, because teams like Atlanta and Orlando, who I think they're better than Atlanta, by the way, those teams were starting to make their moves. So if you're the Bulls, you better take care of your business, because, like I said before, do I trust Atlanta now with the Trae Young injury? No, I don't. Do I trust Brooklyn, who just fired their head coach at the All-Star break? No. Orlando, I think they're going to be right there. And let's not forget, I know you're going to talk about this team in a minute, but the Indiana Pacers, who already made their big move a month ago, picking up Pascal Siakam from the Toronto Raptors. So the Bulls, we all know they got some work to do to stay in the play-in tournament race. And so these other teams, they're trying to make their move, but the Bulls, you got to worry about your business and see what happens from there on.
Listen, Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown with you. Talking some NBA hardwood here. Cleveland bounced back from that loss last week. They beat the Wizards. You talked about the Pacers earlier, 133-111 over Dallas. And they just shot the ball, basically shot lights out. So, you can kind of take it for what it's worth. But yeah, I mean, Miles Turner had 33 points, which is right up there, which I think ties a career high for him. And they were they shoot the three a little bit. They depend on a little bit too much for me, for my liking. You know how I feel about that. But as far as the Mavs, they just I know Luka didn't have his best showing. He had 33 points, but didn't really have a lot of help after Kyrie. PJ Washington, where were you at, dude? And they didn't really have a lot of offense from Dallas. And like I said, the Pacers just shot the ball lights out.
Dallas scoring 111 and no offensive help outside of Luka and Kyrie, go figure. But the Indiana Pacers, we talked about this before, we'll mention it again. They can score with the rest of them in the NBA, of course, with Pascal Siakam, Tyrese Halliburton. But can they play defense when they need to? That's going to be a big question.
Yeah, that's gonna be the thing, and that could look. You're gonna need defense in the playoffs. You can only score so many points, but if you can't make those big stops late, I mean that's gonna kill you. Phoenix and beat the Lakers 123-113. Grayson Allen led the way for the Suns with 24 points. I saw a little bit of this game, and it was just you kind of felt that the Suns were kind of on a mission after they had a couple. They've had a couple losses to start off the second half, and they were able to kind of like get it going here. And this is despite not having, and this is despite KD not having a good shooting night, no Beal, and also Book having not having a good shooting night either.
On the flip side for the Los Angeles Lakers, their starting five did a great job. LeBron James had 28. Anthony Davis had 23. D'Angelo Russell is starting to pick up his play once again, where he left off a month ago. He had 20 points yesterday off of 8 of 14 shooting, including 4 for 8 from downtown. But their points from the bench, outside of Taurean Prince, you really did get anything there. I think that was a big difference in the game. Bench production, you're going to need that, especially during the long season. And that's been one of the main problems for this Lakers team this year. Who's going to be that third guy? D'Angelo Russell has stepped up to the plate, as I mentioned over the last month, but the rest of the guys on the bench has just been searching. Like, I'll pull up one of your numbers. Where are they? Where are they? The lack of bench production has been the Lakers' problem lately.
Yeah, it only gets harder for the Lakers too. We'll talk about that in a second here. Now, finishing off from last night's games, you got the Bucks, no trouble with Philadelphia, 119-98. I think this is only their third or fourth win since Doc has taken over.
Fourth win.
Yeah, fourth win. Okay. Thank you. Giannis had 30 points, and the Sixers continue to kind of be in free fall, and they're now like the 5th or 6th seed in the East right now. If they don't get it together, they could be right there in that play-in in section 2 with the Bulls in them.
Yeah, you just said the worst part out of my mouth regarding the Philadelphia 76ers. So I know they're playing without Joel Embiid, but you can't play like you expect him to come back tomorrow, next week, or whenever. You got to worry about what's on the floor right now, and they got to go take care of business and find somehow, some way to play 500 basketball.
Going into Saturday's games, you got Minnesota, no trouble with Brooklyn. Of course, you said it, Jacques Vaughn out as head coach, and that's now Kevin Ollie, who won a national championship at UConn, who also played at UConn, just taking over Minnesota, no trouble with them. The Saturday night game of the week from ABC, it was basically, all Celtics, 116-102 over the Knicks, and Jason Tatum only had 19 points, but it was Jaylen Brown that was the story here. He had 30 points, and it was 13 for 24 from the field.
On the flip side for the New York Knicks, outside of Jalen Brunson, you really didn't get any production from any other guys, and this is the reason why many people are concerned about the New York Knicks, because of the injuries that they have to their key stars. First of all, with Julius Randle, I know he's supposed to be reevaluated in a couple of weeks, hopefully. And, of course, OJ Anunoby, who they acquired in the trade via the Toronto Raptors a little bit over a month and a half ago. So those two guys were missed on Saturday. Jalen Brunson can only do so much, but he's got to have some help. Outside of Josh Hart, who scored 18 points, you really did get any kind of other contributions from that Knicks squad. So if the Knicks stay like this without Randle, without Anunoby for the rest of the year, it's going to be a problem for them the other way come playoff time. The Knicks need all bodies healthy for even to compete against teams like Boston and Milwaukee. So, like I said, the Celtics, they picked up on that hot shooting from what they did here in Chicago last Thursday. The Knicks, when they stack the way they're constructed right now with all their injuries, they cannot compete against the top teams in the East.
Yeah, and well, look, I warned everybody. I said the Knicks might be peaking too soon, and then now with the injuries too, that could be a problem here. So we'll see. Hopefully, Randle can come back, and Anunoby can come back as well. Going into of course, the last game from Saturday, I should say, the Magic held off the Pistons 112-109. Going into Friday's games, you had the Lakers holding off San Antonio. LeBron had 30 points when Wembanyama had 27 and 18, 13 boards, I should say, for the Spurs. The Nuggets, no trouble with the Blazers. Golden State held off the Hornets. This is by only 15 points from Steph, but yet everyone contributed to that game on Friday.
Yeah, you play one of the worst teams in the league. You hopefully get the contributions from everybody else.
Yeah, exactly. Milwaukee, maybe they're starting to figure it out a little bit. They beat Minnesota 112-107. I saw a little bit of this game. Giannis had 33. Anthony Edwards had 28 on the flip side for the T-Wolves. And like maybe the defensive part, especially, I think maybe they're starting to figure it out a little bit. 4 wins now.
Yeah, you started to see that in last Friday's win, as you mentioned. You saw that definitely yesterday against a lesser opponent in the Philadelphia 76ers. So we'll see what Doc Rivers can do between now and the end of the season. Will he turn water into wine? I don't think so, but you want to be consistent enough on that defensive end going into the playoffs. These create some momentum and some consistency there.
Should be interesting there these next few weeks. Miami, no trouble with the Pelicans. And the Thunder.
It was a big old fight that I read about.
Let's talk about that for a little bit. There was a little bit of scuffle and such, and it just kind of like, wait a minute, Jimmy Butler got ejected, and now he's suspended for a game. I guess there was a foul on Zion, and apparently, I guess that there was some disagreement whether it should have been like a flagrant or something, and then kind of all hell break loose. It was just I saw clips of it, it was just like, what the hell is going on here? Like, really? And so, and then, and I guess, I don't know, the whole thing just kind of was was just kind of silly. I know Bam kind of got in the middle of it too, and but the game actually ended up being okay. I know Najee Marshall was also ejected because he and Butler kind of got into a little bit of a scuffle there as well. So I don't know. That whole thing was just weird.
Yeah, I know. As teammates, you're supposed to protect your guys, but when stuff goes overboard like that, it's going to be a problem. And people want to know why that you don't see any more fights in the NBA. This is one of the reasons why you don't want stuff like this to really get out of hand.
Yeah, that was a little bit of there. Like I said, Butler and Marshall got suspended. I know a couple other guys got fined. I know Jokic, another Jokic that paid for the Pelicans, he got suspended for coming off the bench. So that was just weird as there. But yeah, the Thunder no trouble with the Wizards. Just hammer. They got like 10 different players recording made 3-pointer. This is their 9th game with that. That's the most by such a team in a season in NBA history. So the 3-point has been OKC's friend, especially on Friday. We'll see if they can keep it up. But yeah, I mean, they're starting to kind of get it going, and they're still like right there competing with the T-Wolves for the top of that Western Conference spot. So it's gonna get a little bit interesting there.
Here's the thing about OKC that I want to get your take on. You mentioned about the 3-point shot. We talk about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who should be a top candidate for MVP, especially now with Embiid out. And like I said my guy Anthony Edwards of Minnesota. Those should be your top 2 guys for MVP. But do you think that style, even in today's NBA, do you think that style of game can work come playoff time for OKC? Because we talked about it on our panel almost a couple weeks ago now. I know that home court will help this young squad, but it really doesn't guarantee anything because they don't have any playoff experience. I know to get experience, you got to go through it. But do you really think their style of play can sustain itself come playoff time? I don't know if it can. I like watching them play as well, but even in today's NBA, the pace of play changes come playoff time because all possessions become that much more precious.
Well, yeah, look at Miami. Well, they did last year, beating Milwaukee, and they were on the road, so that they got it all. And they ended up going all the way to the finals. I mean, the whole thing with the 3-point, I guess we got to wait and see if that's the case. But if you're not hitting your threes, especially during the playoffs, you might as well just forget about it. And this is really going to be interesting to see if that style can work, because it's all going to depend on the matchups. Like we've seen some games with them where the 3-pointer they couldn't hit their threes and they got their butts kicked. So you better hope that you live and die by the 3. I say this all the time. I'm sure I'm going to say it, after this segment, we could talk college hoops. It's got to, you got to hit your threes. If you don't, then you might as well it's going to be an early exit for them, perhaps.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something about that.
You pretty much just summed it all.
Oh, Lord. All right, Clippers held off the Grizzlies. Kawhi had 24 there. Houston pulled away from Phoenix. Fred VanVleet made some big shots late. I was a little disappointed in this loss for Phoenix because they're kind of right there in the thick for that number 1 seed. They can go from like 1 all the way down to like the 7th or the 8th seed and then play in. So if you're the Suns, you better try to kind of get it going. I know Beal's been out the last couple of games for resting, but it's just you can't afford to have these kind of losses. I know Houston's been there. It's not a bad team, but you just can't afford these kind of losses, especially when you're trying to get to that top line.
I said it before, and I'll say it again for Phoenix. Health is wealth, and you got to get that chemistry going with Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, and Devin Booker. Grayson Allen's been doing a nice job, but you need your main guys to help set that tone.
Absolutely. Philadelphia got a nice big win against Cleveland. Tyrese Maxey had 24 points. So it's gonna be a session of last night's game. You gotta think that maybe Philly can kind of like stay afloat until whatever happens to Embiid with Embiid. That's gonna be the thing here. And also Toronto edge out Atlanta 123-121. So Atlanta, especially with Young being out, that's gonna be an issue.
Yeah. It's Dejounte Murray's team now, from now to further notice.
Yep. Going to this week's games, you have the first game of the NBA TV doubleheader. You got Toronto and Indiana at 6 o'clock. Detroit and New York. That suddenly becomes like a pretty big game for the Knicks at 6:30. Brooklyn and Memphis at 7, 2 teams. And Miami and Sacramento. That should be an interesting one at 9 o'clock on also NBA TV.
Tomorrow, Tuesday, your schedule looks like this. The Pistons will play back-to-back games as they'll travel to Chicago to take on the Bulls. That's at 7 o'clock. Other games for Tuesday, we'll have Dallas at Cleveland, Brooklyn at Orlando, Golden State at Washington. As Golden State will start their East Coast road trip. We have Utah at Atlanta. In the first game of that Tuesday night doubleheader on TNT, we'll have Philadelphia at Boston. We'll have the Pelicans at the Knicks. That should have been the game on TNT, but I digress. Rounding out the Tuesday night schedule, San Antonio at Minnesota, Charlotte at Milwaukee. In the second half of that TNT Tuesday night doubleheader, we'll have Houston at OKC. And Miami will play Portland at the same time. That's your schedule for Tuesday.
Interesting that I like the fact that OKC is getting some national love finally, so that should help a little bit. People get to know them a little bit better. Now, Wednesday's games, the first game of the ESPN Wednesday doubleheader should be a good one. You got the Pelicans coming off a back-to-back. They face Indiana at 6:30. Dallas and Toronto also at 6:30. Memphis and Minnesota. Cleveland and Chicago, the Bulls. That should be interesting there, especially with the Cavs and their various injuries. So we'll be also second back-to-back for the Bulls. So that should be interesting how that goes. Sacramento and Denver at 8. And the second game of the ESPN doubleheader on Wednesday, you got the Battle of Los Angeles, the Lakers, and the Clippers.
Hopefully LeBron James will be playing in that one. I'm just saying. And your schedule for Thursday looks like this. We'll have Milwaukee at Charlotte, Utah at Orlando, Atlanta at Brooklyn, Golden State at New York to take on the Knicks.
That should be a fun one.
Yeah, that's the first game of that TNT Thursday night doubleheader. Remember, Steph Curry broke the record for all-time three-point field goals made there at a couple years ago. Rounding out the Thursday night schedule, OKC is at San Antonio. Houston will travel to Phoenix to take on the Suns. Miami and Denver will get it on in the rematch of last year's finals. That's the second half of that TNT Thursday night doubleheader. And we'll wrap it up with the Washington Wizards at the Los Angeles Lakers.
And Jimmy should be back for that game after his one-game suspension. So that should be a fun one there. And that's your schedule for this week in NBA.
Hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2 just around the corner as you're listening to the Monday edition of Second City Sports. A big weekend locally in college basketball. Should Court Storming be banned? Chris Chelios gets his number retired, and we'll have Old School TV Monday to wrap up Black History Month. That and a whole lot more as you're listening to Second City Sports, a Monday edition right here at Sports Zone Chicago.
No, I don't know, though. I'm scared.
Do you know that you're in my lane?
No, not at all.
Are you not paying attention? Are you texting? I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6. It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention. I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up. My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention. It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Move it!
Many will hear the calling. Few will earn the title. United States Marine. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Second City Sports, the Monday edition. We're live in the living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid, that's Lakina. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80, that's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow my Keenan McGee on the Twitter, X, and Kira's going on the IG.
We have less than 55 minutes left of this extravaganza we call a Sports Talk radio show. If you want those questions or comments answered, you can go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions and comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. And just a daily reminder, you can catch Sports Zone Chicago right now on Roku TV.
Okay, Sid, where do you want to go to first as far as college hoops is concerned?
We'll start out with our local teams. To find in line night last Saturday, they get a big 95-85 win over the Iowa Hawkeyes to improve their record to 20-7 on the season. Josh Diggs for the Hawkeyes had 20 points, while Coleman Hawkins for the Fighting Illini had a career high of 30 points, including 9-11 shooting from the free throw line. Lakina, I did watch the majority of this game live on my television screen. Iowa gave Illinois all they can handle in that first half, but the Fighting Illini, Brad Underwood and crew turned up that defense in the second half. I don't know if you were watching it, Lakina, but as we talked about on last Friday's show, the Illini melted down the stretch, giving that game away at Penn State. I said Illinois should win this game, which they did. What would they do in response to that loss last Wednesday on the road? Brad Underwood did not like the energy that his starting five came out with to start that second half. He benched the whole starting five for the last for 5 or 6 game time minutes in that second half. The second unit, which helped bring Illinois back into the game. Of course, he put the starters back in there, responded nicely. So I thought that was a great move by Brad Underwood. I told you he's on my personal hot seat this year. He has his team playing well. As you mentioned, with 3-point shooting for Illinois, they shot it at a 37% clip, I believe. But when they have their 3-point shooting going, they could be unbeatable. But when their 3-point shots are not falling, they're forced to adjust their games. Sometimes they can do it, but many times they cannot.
Yeah, and I think that could be something to look out for again tomorrow. It's going to be about matchups for them. So that could be the key to where if Illinois goes far or they get knocked out in the second round. So that's going to be really going to be kind of like the number one thing here. And also shout out to Coach Underwood. This is his number 700 career win as a coach. So that's a nice little. I think he and Lou Henson are the only ones to do that at Illinois, to get their 700 win. So that's career win. So that's pretty impressive there. He's now.
And the final lineup picked up their 1,000th win in Big Ten conference history.
Yeah, they did. So that was a pretty not bad. All the coaches through the years, of course, Lou Henson, and of course Bruce Weber and Bill Self, and that all that whole thing. So that's a nice little opening there. So that was a really cool moment there too. I know they had a little bit of something there as well. Now going to yesterday's game. Speaking of Illinois,
one more game for Saturday before we go to yesterday. Let's give a shout out to Sister Jean and his basketball team, the Loyola Ramblers of Chicago. That's right. They are now 27 on the year. Of course, this is their second year in the Atlantic 10 Conference. They defeated George Mason 80-59. Lakina, I did watch a lot of this game. Of course, the first meeting a couple weeks ago, it was no contest in the second half. That script repeated itself. The Loyola Ramblers, you're talking about a team that plays well as a well-run oil machine. This is the Loyola Ramblers, folks. Yes, the game was a blowout, but they shared the basketball, and their intensity on defense is almost like Northwestern's a little bit in a sense. Of course, George Mason's a good team, but the Loyola set that tone early, and it carried throughout the game. They forced 9 first-half turnovers from George Mason. George Mason committed 15 turnovers in total, but the Loyola Ramblers were set from the word go, and they earned that victory at home last Saturday afternoon.
I was actually going to get to that because I was trying to make a little bit of a theme here with the
my bad.
Well, no, it's fine. But I was actually going to make a thing here because Richmond, they also got a big win at the same time. They beat Davidson in the A10. Also to LaSalle, defying Tim Leggers, they got a big win yesterday. So they're all kind of bunched up in the A10 with Dayton. Of course, Dayton had a bad loss last week, so they're all kind of bunched up there in the A10. And remember, assuming that Dayton doesn't win the A10 tournament, there's someone's going to end up might be one of these teams. So we're interested to see. Cause I think after Richmond and LaSalle and Loyola, one of them's gonna have to win that conference. If it's not Dayton to get into that get into the tournament. So that's gonna be really gonna be the big thing here, and we'll see what happens there. I think they still got a couple more weeks left, so they kind of get it going here. Now going to Sunday.
Yeah, Dayton and Loyola play this Friday, so that's going to be a big game. We'll talk about it a little bit more on Friday, but this is going to be the big game of the year for the Ramblers.
Yeah, we'll get to that on Friday. Purdue, no trouble with Michigan, 84-76, 35 points from Zach Edey. Matt Painter said that Edey, this is gonna be his last year. He's not gonna use the extra eligibility that he was gonna have. So that should be a big one here. Marquette, no trouble with Xavier. St. John's upset Creighton 80-66, and of course only Rick Pitino can make it. He has his big rant last week. We all made a big deal about that. They won their next game, and now they've upset Creighton. They actually have a pretty solid schedule through these last 3, so they could probably get to 11-8. And if they can win a couple of games in the Big East tournament, they could perhaps make a case to be in that large bid. So there's a reason why Rick Pitino's been doing this for about 45 years. He's not dumb. So there is a method to his method to his madness. I don't know.
Yeah, 71-year-old crazy and dumb, maybe crazy dumb, not so much. But I meant to bring this up on the show last Friday, but we ran out of time. But Rick Pitino decides to play happy-go-lucky after your team wins the next game after your outburst from the previous contest. But I saw a little bit of that game yesterday. They played well as a team. Creighton struggled shooting, especially from the outside. But the one thing that really stuck out to me yesterday, Lakina, I don't know about you, but Rick Pitino looked like the poor man's Pat Riley and Colonel Sanders all dressed up at the same time. I know he wanted to look his Sunday best, but he was a poor man's Pat Riley, aka Colonel Sanders, with that all white suit. I'm just saying.
Not the first time. Look, this he wears that suit at least like once a season. So I've seen him do this since he was at Louisville. So
maybe it's spring fever mode. I don't know.
Maybe so. Yeah, it was actually, yeah. So that's not the first time he's worn that suit, but yeah, nice one for St. John's. Maybe like I said, maybe there was a little outburst there last week. Maryland no trouble with Rutgers, so they definitely need to keep pace there. Now Southern Illinois, right there in the Missouri Valley, they got a big win against Evansville, I should say, 65-53, easy for me to say, as they're wrapping up, as the Missouri Valley wrapping up their season this week. Let's see here. Nebraska, no trouble against Minnesota. And Ohio State may have thrown a wrench into Michigan State's chance to go into the tournament. Jalen Bonner's 3-pointer as it at the buzzer, and they beat Michigan State. The Buckeyes also too. Jacob Deaver is also making a case for that Ohio State job.
On the flip side for Michigan State, we talked about them for the last couple of weeks. Lakina, they had that big win at home against Illinois. They went on a 4-game winning streak. Now they lost their last 2 games. They got to finish strong in the Big Ten regular season, and they're probably going to have to win at least 2, perhaps 3 games in the Big Ten tournament. So that's what's facing Tom Izzo's crew right now.
Yep. So yeah, definitely still got a lot to do there, and that loss against Ohio State, that's under his interim coach, not good if you're if you're Sparty. UConn with a nice bounce back win against Villanova, 78-54, and a shout out to our buddy Spiro Davis, who I was actually right that he actually had to call this game for CBS. Houston defeats Baylor in a thriller, 82-76. You had a buzzer beater that ended up not counting, but then Houston went to this 10-3 run or something like that. They were able to kind of propel them to that win over Baylor.
Yeah, I know that game went into overtime, and so I saw a little bit of that before watching the Illini game last Saturday. So Houston, I know they're supposed to be one of the top teams in the country. They have all that great young talent, especially in the backcourt. But it was a nice bounce back win for them because a couple weeks ago I wasn't sure about them. They had that big loss at Kansas at the field house, and it looked like they weren't ready to play, but they were this past Saturday against Baylor on the road.
Very thrilling game there. Such a fun game there for Houston and Baylor. That was fun. Old Southwest Conference foes battling up there, so we get to see a little bit more in the Big 12 now. Arizona with a nice bounce back win against Washington. Tennessee, congrats to Rick Barnes on his 800th career win. They had no trouble with Texas A&M. Iowa State and West Virginia, they're in the driver's seat in the Big 12 with all them in Houston with all the craziness going on there. All right, Wake Forest upsets Duke, but really the bigger story was, if you guys didn't see this on Saturday, there was a court storming. First time that I believe in 7 years that Wake has defeated Duke. And Kyle Flakowski, who is one of Duke's top players, gets injured as the fans were storming the court. We saw John Shire's reaction. Understandably, he was very concerned for his guys. Wanted to get the hell out of there. And there was this. And Shire said out. Coach Shire said afterwards that should court storming be banned. I mean, look, like I said on Twitter, I've been a big fan of Coach Shire since he was in high school, and of course, he and his coached by his dad won a state championship there. But I kind of feel like this is a little bit off base here. I mean, I know there have been people who have various issues about this in the last couple of days since all this kind of transpired. We've seen some that happen. We saw with Caitlin Clark on the women's side at Ohio State about a month ago. I just think that like Seth Greenberg, who of course he beat Duke when he was at Virginia Tech. Of course, the way they did was very smart. They actually gave the security guards actually gave the Duke players the time to get off the floor, and then everyone can go crazy and whatnot. So I think that's what they need to do here. Wake Forest was not ready for that. They should have been, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah, like I said, part of it is Wake Forest's fault, their security team and what have you. Like you said, most of the Duke players were walking off the court. Of course, Philip Kowski was on the other side. He was trying to literally, if you saw the video, he was literally trying to get out the way. Yep. But unfortunately, his ankle got caught up in that madness. So, but my thing was for the security there. This is a warning to all you colleges and universities. Like, remember what the NBA used to do back in the day, Lakina, before they, especially if you watch all those old Boston, LA games, they had the cops literally sitting sitting in the Boston Garden at courtside because the fans were storming the field. Thank goodness no one got hurt in those days, but they were very cautious about that. You got to have something like that. Get the players off the court first, the coaches and everything, because if you saw the tape, like you said, John Shire was shaking the Wake Forest. I forget his coach's name.
Steve Forbes.
Yeah, Steve Forbes. Thank you. He was shaking Coach Forbes' hand, and then he saw that Filipkowski was down. So, I gotta go attend to my player. Of course, the coach of Wake Forest, Coach Forbes, understood it, and you saw what happened. But if you had to have the security sit literally in front of the stands like they do many times in college football, that's what's going to have to happen. Let the players get off the court first, and then let them go.
Yeah, I think banning it might be a little bit much. I know SEC, they have fines. I think the Big Ten is like a strike system. They don't have anything like that in the ACC, so I don't know if you can stop it, but I think you kind of try to contain it a little bit more and just take care of your.
That's what I have to do now.
Yeah, just take care of your business if you're the security guard. I mean, if you remember back in the 70s and 80s, like remember when the Blazers won the championship? I think was it 77? Poor Bill Walton had his jersey ripped off. Like he was basically was like, what the heck's going on here? I know that he had to kind of get out of there. And of course, the 80s, like you said, I think there were some cases where they were on horses. So some of those cases there, they had horses because you did want to kind of control it. So that whole thing just was very weird. And it's just kind of odd how that transpired. But nice win for Wake Forest, but like I said, first win against Duke at home in like 7 years. But unfortunately, no one's talking about that. So,
we hope that Filipkowski's ankle is okay.
Yeah, I don't think there's been any updates yet. We'll update for you guys once we do. Back to the court now. Kansas, no trouble with Texas. North Carolina, no trouble with UVA. Our buddy Jared Wills, we know, of course, CSU, of course, we know he's a big Kentucky fan. I know that he was in a good mood here as Alabama, Kentucky got their butts kicked by Alabama. Justin Edwards had 28 points, I should say, for the Wildcats. And it was basically, I saw a little bit of this game. It was all Kentucky pretty much from start to, actually beginning the second half.
Yeah, let's see if John Calipari and his young crew can keep it up between now and the end of the regular season. That SEC tournament, it's going to be something. Now, you can call me crazy, Lakeem. I'll be honest, I haven't watched Alabama from start to finish all year long. I know Brandon Miller was a big part of that team last year. I know he's playing with the Hornets in the NBA. But what makes that team so special? Because me, from an outsider looking at it, I didn't expect them to be that good. But they really surprised me this year.
Yeah, they can shoot the three very well, and Ryan Griffin, one of their top guys. He can, he's definitely a great facilitator on the offensive side for them. So I don't think anybody in Alabama thought that they would actually be pretty decent. They thought that, I don't want to say it's going to be a down year, but I think they thought that they wouldn't be as good. I mean, they're kind of right there and think of that top tier with Auburn and Kentucky and Tennessee and the ACC. They're kind of like in the 4 or 5 seed right now. This also, fortunately, got their butts kicked by Kentucky. But, that's all a showing there by Alabama. So, really, they're going to have a good seeding, especially if they finish strong these next couple of weeks. But, really, it was just all Kentucky this game on Saturday. Speaking of Auburn, no trouble with Georgia. St. Mary's, no trouble with San Diego. San Diego State, again, no trouble with Fresno State. South Carolina pulled away from Ole Miss. Wazoo with the letdown against Bobby Hurley and his Sun Devils, Arizona State. If you're in Arizona, you're feeling pretty good right now. You don't feel so bad after losing. Your rival kind of helped take care of business for you. UNLV upset Colorado State. UCF, Johnny Dawkins, his guys are putting together a nice little resume. They beat Texas Tech. Florida with a bounce back win after the Alabama loss against Vanderbilt. And K-State, they didn't have to go to. They need overtime, but they did upset BYU.
Crazy faith. We'll see if they can get it together in the Big 12 conference between obviously now and the next couple weeks as the regular season winds down. You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. See Lakina here with you talking college basketball. Going back to yesterday, Lakina, shout out my guy Penny Hardaway. The Memphis Tigers barely escaped with the 78-74 win at home against Florida Atlantic University. They were up big, Lakina, but FAU almost came back, and Penny Hardaway's crew at various points, especially during the middle of that losing stretch in mid-January when they lost about 7 to 8 games in a row, giving up to me offensive rebounds and not coming up with the defensive stops, and that almost cost them again yesterday, but they barely held on for a 4-point win.
Yeah, nice. Basically, definitely needed win there for Memphis to kind of stay right there and think of it in that American Conference. And I'm not gonna say that they have to win the conference to get into the tournament, but they may.
But it's looking that way.
Yeah, but they may have to do just that. So we'll just see if we can kind of keep it up these next couple weeks of the season. Air Force beating New Mexico in the pit. That's not a good loss for New Mexico. The seeding. Western Illinois beat Southern Indiana. They're right there to think of it in the Ohio Valley. That conference there, and Georgetown edged out DePaul. All right. Okay. Yeah, that's about it for there. Indiana State beat UIC. No trouble with them. Bradley beat Illinois State. Not. If you took the under on that one, you kind of had a nice little start to your weekend. But yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, it was betting on the Missouri Valley these days.
All right, going into this week's games as days wrapping up for some of the smaller conferences. North Carolina, they host Miami. That's on ESPN at 6. Big Monday. West Virginia and K-State at 6 o'clock, also on ESPN2. The second game that doubleheader. Baylor hoping to bounce back against TCU. That should be a good one at 8 o'clock on ESPN.
Tomorrow, Tuesday, your schedule looks like this. Villanova will host Georgetown. That's at 5:30 on FS1. Number 1, Houston will host Cincinnati. That's at 6 o'clock tomorrow on ESPN2. At the same time on ESPN, Mississippi State will host number 16, Kentucky. 2 SEC teams going at it. On Peacock at 6 o'clock tomorrow, we'll have Wisconsin and Indiana. Big game for both teams. I know Indiana's been struggling lately. Wisconsin trying to improve their resumes. They'll have a tough game on the road against the Hoosiers. Speaking of Atlantic 10 plays we talked about earlier with Loyola Chicago, number 21, Dayton will host Davidson, Steph Curry's old school. That's at 6 p.m. tomorrow on CBS Sports Network.
That's a big one if you're cheering for Davidson, if you're Loyola and Richmond. So that could be a big game there. Kansas hosts BYU at 7 o'clock on Big 12 SEC Plus, streaming there. Texas and Texas Tech on ESPN at 8. Florida State, they've been kind of struggling lately. They host NC State on ESPN2. Boise State and Air Force, that's at 8 o'clock. Number 22, Utah State against Fresno State. That's at 9 o'clock. Nevada and Colorado State on FS1. That's a big matchup for the Mountain West. They give us 6 teams this year for the Mountain West, so definitely a little bit jockeying for position there. At 9:30, and also at 10 o'clock, yes, on CBS Sports Network, we got number 20 San Diego State hosting San Jose State.
One more important game for Tuesday at 6 p.m. on ESPN Plus. Loyola of Chicago, the Ramblers will travel on the road to take on St. Bonaventure.
Yep. Florida, Wednesday's games now. You have Florida hosting the Fighting Mike Berman's Mizzou. I know that Mizzou hasn't had a good showing so far this year, but 5:30 on SEC Network. Big one here on the SEC on ESPN2 at 6. You got Tennessee hosting Auburn. That should be a fun one. Providence and number 5 Marquette on FS1. Number 10 Duke hoping to kind of bounce back from that strangeness that happened down there. And Winston-Salem at Wake Forest, they host Louisville on the ACC Network at 6. Maryland really need this win against Northwestern at 6 o'clock on Big Ten Network to kind of get into the bubble.
Yeah, that's a big game for Northwestern. They need to get another big win on the road in the Big Ten.
Yep. Oh, well, both fronts, definitely. DePaul and Xavier on FS2 at 6. Okay. I think the Paul Ferris just wants the season to be over with already.
Agreed.
Yeah, Oklahoma with a nice win against Oklahoma State in the last Bedlam game on Saturday night. That was a fun game to watch. They face Iowa State at 7 o'clock on the Big 12 SEC ESPN Plus network. UCF and Oklahoma State at the same time on the same Big 12 SEC ESPN Plus, I should say. They're trying to get it going here in the tournament. UIC they host Drake on ESPN Plus at 7. Illinois State and Missouri State. ESPN Plus as well. Indiana State at Evansville on ESPN Plus. A big one here in Peoria. Bradley hosts Southern Illinois. This is definitely a jockey for positioning on the Missouri Valley, as this because it's the last week for them. So the regular season side. So that should be a fun one on ESPN Plus. Texas A&M hosts number 18 South Carolina at 7:30 on SEC Network. Creighton and Seton Hall. If you're a Seton Hall, you really need this to kind of improve your chances in the bubble.
And at 8 o'clock on Wednesday on the Big Ten Network, number 13 Illinois will host the Minnesota Golden Gophers. The final line 20-7 on the year. While the Golden Gophers trying to improve their record, they're now standing at 17-10. Illinois, can they build off this momentum with that win last Saturday at home against Iowa? We shall see. But I think Illinois, with their schedule left to finish up the Big Ten season, I think they should run the table. But do not take Minnesota lightly, folks.
Remember, they got that game March 6th against Purdue, which could be for the number 1 spot in that Big Ten tournament coming up in a couple of weeks. Alabama and Ole Miss at 8, I should say, on ESPN2. Arizona State on the Pac-12 network. Arizona State did them a favor by beating Wazoo. So now they're in the driver's seat in the Pac-12 conference for the number 1 seed there. Oregon State at 10 o'clock on FS1.
Your schedule for Thursday looks like this. Nebraska at Ohio State. That's at 5:30 on FS1. Can the Cornhuskers win a road game in the Big Ten? That's going to be a big question there. Of course, my guy, Penny Hardaway, the Memphis Tigers will travel on the road to take on East Carolina. That's at 6 p.m. on ESPN2. This is for Thursday. And a couple other important games on the schedule for Thursday. We will have Michigan and Rutgers at 7:30 on FS1. Eastern and Western Illinois will do battle at 7:30 on ESPN Plus.
USC and Wazoo on the Pac-12 network at 9:30. St. Mary's and Pepperdine, that's at 10 o'clock on CBS Sports Network. Gonzaga and San Francisco on ESPN2, also at 10 o'clock. I've been saying this for the longest. I think Gonzaga needs to win their conference tournament, probably maybe beat. I know, I think they do have St. Mary's coming up on Saturday. So they're going to need to win that and perhaps maybe win their conference tournament. I don't think they're in the tournament yet. I know some people say that they're just in, but no, they need to improve their resume. They got to beat St. Mary's at least once to get into the tournament.
As we've been saying all year, Lakina, parity is one thing to be reckoned with in college sports, especially in college basketball. So, and it looks like, as we mentioned, with the Missouri Valley, the Atlantic 10 to a lesser extent now with the West Coast Conference. It looks like they may get at least 2 of those 3 conferences that I just mentioned. They may get multiple teams in there this year, but you have to take care of your business. I know we got a break in a minute, but I want to ask you, like, I saw the Big Ten standings watching the Illinois-Iowa game on Saturday. In most years, the Big Ten has had between 6 and 8 teams in the Big not in the Big Ten, but in the main March Madness. As of right now, realistically looking, I think 6 will get it from the Big Ten. Do you see that changing, or do you think your truly would be correct?
I think look, Michigan State needs to that loss against Ohio State, that does not help their chances in the main tournament. And as long as Northwestern doesn't have any bad losses late, I think they can get in. Let's see. I think Iowa could probably maybe sneak in there with a few losses, a couple.
But they had a bad loss against the Illini on Saturday, so that really knocks them down.
Yeah, Maryland needs to win against Northwestern in order to get their chances to bump up a little bit. Like I said, Michigan State losing to Ohio State, that does not help their chances. I mean, could they? Could they get 6? I mean, sure, but I'm trying to think that Illinois, Purdue, Wisconsin, Northwestern, Nebraska. I mean, could maybe Michigan State? They got to win their next couple to become that 6th team, or maybe
which I
Maryland.
think they will.
Yeah, Maryland, I think, may have a better shot than Michigan State. Like that loss against Ohio State, that kind of like just made that's a bad loss if you're the in the committee. So they remember the bad losses and they do the great wins. So that's what I'm saying, that Northwest cannot afford to have any hiccups, because that Chicago State loss could be a big stain on them. So we'll see what happens.
Yep. We got a break for the bottom of the hour, but when we return, Chris Chelios gets his number retired while we witness another classic between the Chicago Blackhawks and the Detroit Red Wings. We'll have other sports news and nuggets, including a couple of franchise tags to be handed out in the NFL, and we'll wrap it up with Old School TV Monday, saluting the ABC TV sitcom of the 90s, Family Matters. That and a whole lot more as you're listening to Second City Sports, the Monday edition, right here on Sports Soul Chicago.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too. These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
And I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Oh, my. This is something else.
All right, thank you, everybody.
All right, it is time now for what we came here to do. The greatest honor a franchise can give a player. And as of today, nobody can ever wear number 7 again as a Chicago Blackhawk. Jones, shoot, save, rebound, save.
Oh, look out.
To break it, ahead for guess who? Patrick Kane, he's in, he scores!
For a reason. He was looking after this rush right here, the drop pass there by Bedard. Bedard's open on the one side, the shot taken, shot rebound, but then the play by DeBrincat made it. And listen, Kane was out of gas. He would look like he was going to go for a line change. Ballman was there, and I thought him at one point here, see, he looked behind him, wanted to see how much time he had. And it's just got such slick hands. There's no way to find this puck off his tape. I mean, from a goalie's point of view, he's so slick with it. Look at that. Look at that. Now, a special way to end it for Patrick Kane.
And all those back-to-back videos were courtesy of NBC Sports Chicago, as the Second City Sports on Chicago, Lakina McGee, Sydney Brown, with you it's only fitting that Patrick Kane, of course, is returned to Chicago. Of course, he gets the game winner for the Red Wings, 3-2, and of course, prior to that, Chris Chelios got his number retired. It was great to see, him, his wife and their four children. Of course, we all know Kaylee, his daughter, she's overdue. Actually, she's like a couple of days overdue. So, she still hasn't, her water hasn't broken yet, from what we've heard. And of course, seeing some of the all-time greats. You saw Dennis Savard, who was the subject of that trade from Montreal, from Chelios, to Montreal for Savvy. Of course, Savvy would end up winning the cup a couple of years later in Montreal, and it was just like a great show in there. Seeing some of the not just the Hawks from like those cup wins. You saw Duncan Keith there, Steve Sharpie was there, but then you saw some of the guys from around that time when Chelios was playing. Seeing Tony Amante and Ed Belfour, among others, Gary Suter. I mean, just really some great guys. I haven't seen Sutton in years, so that was actually good to see him.
Yeah. Brian Noonan too.
All right, yeah, and I saw Doug Wilson there. Of course, he was on our 600 Score with our buddy, two of our buddies, Mark Grody and David Hall. They were doing shows from just outside the United Center. I know he's been, he had some health issues. It's like he's on the other side. He looks great. So yeah, it was just a great time by all. And look, I know some Hawks fans weren't too bummed about them losing, and of course, Kane scored the game winner for the Red Wings. But it actually ended up being kind of a interesting and a very ironic night, I guess.
Yeah, from the past to the present and to the future. I'm talking about Chris Chelios, Patrick Kane, and Connor Bedard. Connor Bedard dished out a vicious hit on Patrick Kane later on in that game. But as you mentioned, Kaner got the game winner last night. I said to myself a couple of minutes before that happened, I said, wouldn't it be crazy if Patrick Kane would have had a good chance to end it? And then 2 minutes later, you saw what happened. But congratulations to Chris Chelios on getting his number retired. I remember watching him playing when I started to get into hockey in the early 90s, and he was a tough physical player. Not only that he played defense the way you should play it as a blue liner, but he contributed offensively as well. Of course, we all know what happened when they were coached by Mike Keenan following 1992. They got swept by the Pittsburgh Penguins. Mike Keenan left, but Chris Chelios' play continued, and displayed that through age 48 when he won his 2 cups with the Detroit Dead Wings. Excuse me, but I think I shared this story before, Lakina. But for those who had missed it, I'll share it again. I was a senior in high school. We had our spring break week. It was during the first week in April of 1999. Of course, Wayne Gretzky already at that point announced that he was going to retire. And so I was trying, for those of you that are age and older, remember you had to actually drive down to the box office.
Mm-hmm.
Remember those days? So I actually drove down in an old 1985 Nissan Pulsar that my mother gave me to drive. I drove it down to the United States. Because the game against the Detroit Dead Wings was supposed to be on that Sunday. And so I saved up all my allowance money. And so I went up to the ticket agent. I said, do you have any tickets remaining for that Sunday game against Detroit? Because at that time, Chris Chelios was traded to Detroit after he said publicly that he will never play for Detroit. So I asked the ticket agent, do you have any tickets left for that game against Detroit? He said, no. I got upset, not at him, but I was like, damn, I wanted to boo the hell out of Chelios. But I ended up getting tickets to that game, which was on that Thursday of that week against the Rangers. Wayne Gretzky got the same ovation, and the Blackhawks won the game. But outside of that, I still respected Chris Chelios. As I mentioned, he's Chicago tough. He was born and raised on the south side of Evergreen Park, played his high school hockey at Mount Carmel, of course, went to the University of Wisconsin. He made a difference on winning teams, as I mentioned, with Chicago and, of course, with the Detroit toward the end of his career. So he thanked the first responders with the policemen and firemen. He got a big standing ovation for that. Of course, you mentioned all the other celebrities that was there. Oh, no, Michael Jordan was not there. He did send a video. You can check it out on the Blackhawks social media pages there. Eddie Vedder, I didn't know they were good friends. He was there yesterday. Dennis Rodman got a standing ovation from that crowd yesterday. I didn't know he has an ugly face tattoo on his right cheek, but I'll let that go. But he was there yesterday. Wayne Gretzky was there yesterday. Kid Rock was there yesterday. Of course, he's from Detroit. That's why he was there, but I digress. But all the celebrities showed up yesterday. It was a great half-hour speech, and he he made fun of himself at one point, talking about staying on time for his jersey retirement speech. But overall, it was a great speech, a great response from the crowd, and it was something to behold. And actually, he told the story about when Brent Seaver asked him to wear his number. And, of course, we saw what Siebes did throughout his Blackhawks career. So job well done by Chris Chelios. The way he entered the United States in that 62 that was awesome. And his mother was bad looking. For those of you scoring at home, bad meaning good, good meaning bad. His mother was styling with that leather jacket with Chelios, her son's number 7 on the back. I was like, Mama deserved the best, and that's what she looked. She looked great yesterday. So overall, great ceremony. Had no complaints about it. So a well-deserved honor for a well-deserved man.
Yeah, his speech kind of had me tear up a little bit. Of course, Mary Hossa was there too, among some of the other ones, and it was sort of like it was a great time by y'all. And like you said, Sid, I mean, look, Southside, guy, from Chicago, and just still spends a lot of time here. I know a couple of his kids. We know Kaylee does some TV work as well, but it'll be. Like I said, I know the ending was not what the Hawks wanted. I know it would have probably been nice if Bedard had been the one to get the game winner. But I said, like you said, okay, it would be ironic, but I know he wanted to get that win. I'm talking about Kaner did. So that was and they weren't like booing. So that was nice, classy response from the Blackhawk fans there. But it was like a solid win, and number 7 will never be worn again. Or except when Steves gets his number retired, I guess. So.
Yeah, let's just have a Ring of Honor ceremony for him because he also wore the number 7. But I believe this was the Blackhawks' second sellout of the year outside the home opener, which featured Connor Bedard. So we all know that the Hawks currently they're struggling right now. They're going to struggle for the next couple years. But it was nice to see the Hawks back on the national stage last night, obviously due to the Chris Chelios ceremony. I know it was broadcast nationwide on the NHL Network via the NBC Sports Chicago feed, but it was actually a very entertaining game to watch. Of course, you thought that the Hawks were actually playing well. Of course, ironic. We talked about Patrick Kane scoring the game winner in overtime. What about Alex DeBrincat, who scored the game tire in the third period?
And then he had an assist in that goal as well. I'm still look. You know how I'm still pissed that he's still not in the Hawks uniform. But again,
Same here.
I digress. But yeah, I mean, it was a nice look. It was a very entertaining game. I don't know what people thought was going to happen during that game. I know Detroit's kind of struggled a little bit, so it's two struggling teams who are not really rivals anymore if you think about it. Because remember, the Red Wings are in the Eastern Conference now, so but it turned out to be a pretty entertaining game. And look, don't feel so bad because if you remember the Penguins last week, we didn't get a chance to talk about it, but when Jaromir Jagr finally got his number retired. That was really nice to see as well. Him, Crosby, seeing Mario Lemieux and a lot of those guys from those early 90s Penguins teams there. And that was pretty cool to see as well. And I think Mike Modano is going to get his number retired with Minnesota, the Wild, not the Stars because they're in Dallas, but he's going to have his number retired with the Wild in a few weeks.
It should have been with the Stars because they won his only Stanley Cup in '99.
I think they did a Ring of Honor with him, I think, a couple of years ago, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. So, but I guess since, he's from Minnesota, so and I guess maybe that's why. I don't know. It's kind of weird how that worked out, but yeah, but it is what it is there. But yeah, so it's nice to see it, but it also makes you feel old that all these guys who grew up watching playing, now they're retired, now they're getting their jerseys. It's good, Lord.
Yeah. How the years go by when you get older, but that's life. You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid Lakina here with you. We still have some minutes left as we wrap up the Monday edition. We'll get to Old School TV Monday coming up in a few minutes. But Lakina, when was the last time we quote unquote buried the NFL toward the end of the show? When was the last time we did that?
Nope. I can't.
Never. I know there was some news that's been out today. Of course, the NFL, the new league calendar year will start off in a couple of weeks. I know we had the scouting combine that's going to start later this week, but there's a couple of players that we need to discuss, Lakina. Saquon Barkley, the running back of the New York Giants. I know that wide receiver T. Higgins and many Bears fans wanted here in Chicago in the Bears uniform. It looks like that's not going to happen because the Cincinnati Bengals decided to franchise tag him. But I want to start with Jalen Johnson, Lakina. Do you think that the Bears will work out a long-term deal with him, or do you think Ryan Poles will use the franchise tag on their star defensive back?
Yeah, I think they might use a tag on him because I just think that they probably, I don't know what his numbers are. I don't know if his numbers went down. He's kind of showing that, hey, he deserves a little bit of that, extra big money. And remember too, with the new extra $30 million, the cap's not going to be $255 million. So that's going to be the thing where if you're Jalen Johnson, you're probably thinking, maybe I could get a little bit of that extra quiche. So, maybe they'll figure it out. I don't know. But yeah, it's going to get interesting to see if they can kind of figure it out, or they may just tag him. I think especially, we'll get to all this stuff in a second, but the combine for me, I think it's just, I don't want to say it's a waste, but I know we know a lot of folks are going to be down there who cover the Bears, but it's just like, okay. We know Caleb Williams isn't going to do it. I know Jaden Daniels has said that he's going to save it for the LSU when they do their pro days as well. And I think Drake May isn't going to be there either. So he's going to do it for the North Carolina's pro day. So yeah, I mean, what's the point in going, I guess? But I guess the Bears, if they decide that they want to get rid of Fields or trade Fields, this is going to be the time to do that. So again, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But yeah, they only have a couple of weeks to talk about the Bears until the new calendar year starts.
Yeah, of course, here's your schedule that looks like this. For Thursday, the combine will start. Defensive linemen and linebackers will have their day. Friday, defensive backs and tight ends. Saturday, we'll have the running backs, quarterbacks, and wide receivers. And, of course, Sunday, we'll have the offensive linemen. So, Lakina, first of all, going back to Ryan Poles, the Bears GM, he's going to have face-to-face meetings with player personnel, folks from all around the league to get the sense of what's the true value for Justin Fields if he decides to trade him. But, he's going to look at all the other candidates that he could draft, especially i.e. offensive linemen. You saw what happened with Darnell Wright last year. He selected him with that first-round pick. It turned out to be a great selection. Well, I want to see what other hidden gems that's going to come out of this combine. I know we'll get into more deeply once we see the players later on this week, but I think the top priority for Brian Poles is I want to see what he does as far as scouting for the offensive lineman, another pass rusher, and what's going to be the true value as he talks around the league with these other team scouts and personnel about the value of Justin Fields.
And if you're one of these teams, if you're a Washington or a couple other teams, I know Atlanta, that name's been floating around since that of course Fields is from just outside Atlanta. And I know a couple other teams, the Steelers. If you're
Patriots.
And if you're one of those teams, you're thinking, okay, you know what, we want the number 9 pick. If you're, I'm sure that they're gonna want. I know Washington already has a top 5 pick. They're at 3, but they want the number 9 pick. If you're one of these teams. Look, we'll take Fields, but give us your number 9 pick. Give us your number 9 pick, and because I'm sure they don't want to do what happened with Carolina. They got let's be honest. I mean, they kind of, I don't want to say they got fleas, but that trade did not look good for Carolina. So that's So if you want to avoid that, I mean, that's gonna be that's gonna be the thing. If you're one of these teams, if they do work things out and perhaps maybe they make a trade.
And also wanted to, how intense are those interviews, face-to-face interviews, going to be with Ryan Poles and Caleb Williams? Because Caleb Williams' character has been in question a bit. I think part of it is unfair for him crying after one of the losses last year to paint his nails, which I think is silly. I'm talking about people making a big deal out of it. Whether you like it or not, that's your business. But I was just wondering how intense and how personal both those interviews are going to be. As you mentioned, him and Jay Daniels are not going to throw on their day at the combine. So I want to be a fly on that wall on how the interview process is going to be.
Well, we always see those weird things that happen that come out. So yeah, it's gonna get a little bit tough, but we'll see if there actually talks and whatever. Because like it's been said, I know Jason McCourty over at Good Morning Football on NFL Network said that they don't have to rush. Well, actually, they kind of do. They only have like 2 weeks before the new league year. So that's gonna be interesting to see what they do there. Let's see here. It just posted Malik Neighbors, who of course from LSU. He'll be at the combine to interview, but he will not run or test until they have their pro day. So that's probably the route that a lot of these top guys are going to take. So they might just wait till their pro day and perhaps maybe do the interviews and such. Okay, so yeah, it's the combine for me, I'm not saying it's a waste, but it just feels like okay, yeah, do we really need like 12 hours of coverage of this? But okay, I digress. But it'll be interesting to see what becomes done here, because like I said, I know Josh Jacobs, I know with the numbers and such, with the new bump in salary, in the salary cap, that'll help teams like I said, Baltimore. They can always use an extra lineman and a D lineman. That'll help San Francisco because, of course, Brandon Ayuk, saying he wants his money. That'll help them a little bit there. And perhaps maybe get rid of some of the old money, absorb some of the money for the Chargers, because you're probably going to have to get rid of some guys. So, yeah, the extra $30 million in that salary cap's really going to help a lot of these teams.
And also, too, with those teams that are facing salary cap concerns like Dallas and Buffalo, we got to see how those teams manage their salary cap wisely, which players are going to let go, and which players will have their contracts reconstructed. So it's going to be a challenging time for many of these contending teams.
Could be interesting to see what happens there. Any other NFL nuggets before we move on?
Oh yes, we talked about this before we went on live. I have my monitor on SportsCenter right now, and guess what the headline was for the Denver Broncos? Russell Wilson says he wants to stay.
I don't know if he's gonna. I don't think that's gonna happen. Sean Payne's already basically said that. You're gone, and it'll be interesting to see what other teams do you try to maybe put him with. I mean, Minnesota, especially if Kirk Cousins doesn't re-sign, or if they trade Cousins, and who else out there is going to want to take him and that cash? Talking about Wilson. So, I don't think that's going to. I know he wants to stay in Denver, but I don't think he's going to have a choice. I think he's going to be gone.
Yeah, and also too, over the weekend, Chad Johnson, who he did great work with inside the NFL on the CW this year. He also co-hosts a podcast with Shannon Sharp of ESPN's First Take. And he said he heard from little birdie, quote unquote, over the weekend that Russell Wilson may be headed to Pittsburgh. Do you think the Steelers are a playoff team next year if Russ decides to join the Steel City?
I mean, it helps a little bit, but I don't know. I mean, George Pickens, Najee Harris. I mean, the defense is still okay with Cam Hayward, but you wonder like that offense was a big problem with them last year. And does the Wills out there help? But they need O-line help. They need an extra wide receiver for Pickens. I don't know. Do they make them a playoff team? Does it improve them? Absolutely, but we don't know how much gas that Will Wilson has left in the tank. That's a lot of wear and tear. So I don't know.
That's true, and it's going to be tougher for Pittsburgh next year because remember, Joe Burrow will be coming back for the Cincinnati Bengals. You still have Baltimore and Cleveland. I know technically they were a playoff team this year, but you assume that Deshaun Watson is going to be healthy next year. Remember, he struggled before his injury, and of course, Cleveland took off after that. So many people think that if Russell Wilson goes over to Pittsburgh, that they'll be that quote unquote team that replaces a team that made the playoffs last year to miss the playoffs the next year. They may replace Cleveland. We'll see. Does Russell Wilson make them better? Yes. Is he better than Mason Rudolph? Yes. Is he better than Kenny Pickett? Yes. Is he better than Trubisky? Yes.
Well, Trubisky is gone. They've released him, so they've already said bye to him. So yeah. We'll just see what happens with that. Now, keeping with the Steelers theme, a former Steeler got a nice little bump in salary from ESPN. Former safety Ryan Clark has signed. ESPN has made official, signed a new deal, a multi-year deal with ESPN. He's still going to be doing NFL Live. You're still going to see him on Get Up and First Take, and I believe they're going to be a little bit. I think there's going to be you're going to see more of his podcast as well. They're going to be showing that a little bit, and they're actually saying that he could be perhaps maybe one of the top NFL paid NFL analysts on the network.
Yeah, he has a lot going on in his play. I know he just completed his first season as host of the Inside the NFL on the CW. I thought he did a fine job. Of course, you mentioned his podcast, The Pivot. Of course, Channing Crowder, his co-host, also on Inside the NFL, does a great job on the podcast, the Pivot podcast, along with Fred Taylor. But Ryan Clark is one of the he's almost the same age as us, but he's one of the young guys that can break down the game. He's very precise. He's very intelligent on breaking down what's going on in the NFL. He still has an ear with the players that are obviously playing in the league right now. So the evolution of him has really taken place on the upward swings throughout the last several years. I remember he was still playing for Pittsburgh before he was a guest on First Take when it was, in my opinion, really good when Skip and Stephen A was still doing it. They usually brought him on, and he was very good then, which set up his post career. Now that he's doing a fine job of. But congratulations to him, and that podcast, The Pivot, is very good. So I hope he keeps it going.
And also to another one of his fellow hosts from that NFL Live series, Dan Orlovsky. He's also, remember, his contract's going to be up in a couple of months, so I'm sure ESPN is going to do what they can to make sure he stays around as well. So it's going to be interesting. And I think it's also a place where I think Clark wants to want to start his own whiskey company, which I guess he could ask Ed Bell for, because that's what he's doing now. So that was a nice to hear. But that's very him. So yeah, congrats to him, and very deserving of new salary there for Mr. Clark. So anything else before we go old school TV Monday?
I'm done as far as sports takes. One more sports take. Sorry, I lied. I know, don't call me a liar, but congrats to Cindy Crawford. I just saw it on here from yesterday. I saw it again. She made the shoot the puck shot at last night's Blackhawks game during the intermission between the second and third periods.
Yeah,
Chicago's very own, by the way.
Yeah, the Cal native. Yeah, I think she was the only one that made that shot out, shoot the puck. Theo Epstein, he was there too, of course. He and Chris Chelios have been good friends and have been good for a long time. He totally missed it. So clearly clearly hockey wasn't his sport growing up. I'm talking about Mr. Epstein, but that was really cool. Of course, like I said, we saw Rodman there. People forget that the Bulls and the Blackhawks at the time were actually still pretty close. Because of course, you share a home building. Of course, you're gonna get a little bit close. Of course, they go golfing. He and MJ would go golfing a lot during the times when before MJ retired the second time. So. Yeah, that's how those two would have known. That would have been funny though if MJ had came, because that would have been petty as you know what. But oh yeah, did you hear about this? Speaking of Scottie Pippen, Luke Longley, and Horace Grant are doing kind of like an answer to the Last Dance. That's going to be only on in Australia. Luke Longley's native Australia. I guess they're going to have like the real story as to counter what was said in the Last Dance. So I think it's on YouTube right now. It's not here in the States, like I said, it's in Australia, but I'm sure it's on YouTube. So yeah, if you guys get a chance to check that out. But
we didn't talk about this last week, but Scottie Pippen's really been on that trip. Like he thought he was betrayed wrongly in that documentary. I would say give it up, but if you're trying to make money off it, good luck. But do you really think they would, if they brought that here to America or here to Chicago, that people really go out to see them talk? Call me crazy, but I don't think so. I love them all. They were part of the teams that we watched here in Chicago growing up. But do you really want to see them talk? No. That's just me.
Yeah, I think there are people that probably feel like maybe they did kind of like get the raw deal here on the Last Dance. They really didn't show Horace too much. I know Luke Longley really didn't. Well, yeah, and Longley really didn't say anything too much, but I don't think he liked that. But I don't think Horace liked how he was being portrayed. That's probably why. Yeah, he was on there, but he didn't like how he was portrayed, especially those last few years before he was traded. So yeah, that was pretty interesting. But yeah, I mean. It's like YouTube in Australia if you want to check it out, but it's just a little bit kind of where they would do this, but it is what it is now. Actually, the Second City Sports on Sports on Chicago, Lakina McGee sitting around with you. It's that time, Sid. We finished off Old School TV Monday honoring Black sitcoms, and it is for this week.
Family Matters. That's right. Family Matters was an American television sitcom that debuted on ABC on September 22nd, 1989, and it ended its ABC run on May 9th, 1997. It moved to CBS in the fall of 97, September 97, and the series finale aired on July 17th, 1998. It was a spinoff of Perfect Strangers. The series revolved around the Winslow family, an African-American middle-class family living in Chicago. Midway through the first season, the show introduced the Winslow's nerdy neighbor, Steve Urkel, played by Jaleel White, who was originally scripted to appear as a one-time character. However, he quickly became the show's breakout star and eventually the main character, joining the main cast. It ran for 215 episodes over 9 seasons. Family Matters became the second longest running live action U.S. sitcom with a predominantly African-American cast behind the Jeffersons with 11 seasons and 253 episodes. Both have since been exceeded by Tyler Perry's House of Pain with over 334 episodes as of 2023. Family Matters was the last live-action scripted primetime show that debuted in the 1980s to leave the air. The only scripted show that started in the 80s and has lasted longer is The Simpsons that's airing on Fox.
Yeah, so much to tackle here. Well, look, if you saw the original concept of the show, like you said, of course, Jo Marie Payton, who played Harriet, she made a big name for herself in Perfect Strangers.
Mm-hmm.
The Miller Boya production company, they decided to spin her character off, gave her a family, set in Chicago, middle class. She was an elevator operator. Carl, her husband's a cop. They got 3 kids at the time. Of course, they brought in Thelma Hopkins, who played Harriet's newly widowed young sister, who had a young child, a baby, and of course they brought in Rosella Lenore, who of course was famous, a former Tony-nominated actor and singer. Of course, prior to that, she was on Give Me a Break, playing Nell Carter's mom. Of course, she came on as Carl's mother, and all hilarity ensued, but they were struggling in the ratings at the time. That's why they brought on Steve Urkel. And let's remember too, Jaleel White. If you heard the interviews, he was actually on the brink of quitting the business because he had done a lot of sitcoms that didn't take off. Remember, he was on Charlie and Company with the late Flip Wilson and Christoph St. John. Also, Gladys Knight played the mom. CBS, and I think it was like 86, I think, didn't take off. Of course, if you guys remember, he and Brian Austin Green and the late Jonathan Brandis, they were part of the original cast of Good Morning Miss Bliss, which became Saved by the Bell. Unfortunately, that show didn't take off either on NBC. That version of it, anyway.
Right, that's the version was on Disney Channel. Yeah.
Yep. So, of course, he does some other pilots, and that's how. Of course, when this opportunity came for him to play Urkel, he ran with it. I think he got the inspiration from his uncle, and I think for a couple of uncles, and I think another a big cousin of his. That's how he got the voice and such, and he kind of played around with that. Of course, like Henry Winkler with Happy Days, and later on Heather Locklear with Melrose Place. They kind of saved the series, and I know some of the folks in the cast didn't really like the idea of it being onus on Urkel, but it saved their job. So
it's still getting paid to this day.
Yeah, with the royalties and such. Look, at one point he was making $1 million on that show in the later seasons. So $1 million an episode, I should say, on there. So I mean, it sucks that Jamie Foxx, who played Judy, she was kind of fallen by the waist, kind of like fallen by the wayside. She kind of went upstairs and never came back.
Yeah,
and it is what it is, unfortunately, sadly.
Yeah, a couple other notes here as far as the series. I actually enjoyed the series for like the first 5 years, and of course, the last 2 years on ABC and CBS, I didn't watch intently because things were changing. Of course, at that time it was all about Urkel and him playing these 4 or 5 different characters, and it really just gotten crazy for me. But I remember these 2 characters that really made the impact on the show. One was Cherry Johnson. If you are age and older, you remember her from Punky Brewster in the 80s. She played Laura's best friend, Maxine, on that show in the 90s. And, of course, the late, great Michelle Thomas, who played Steve Urkel's cousin, I believe.
No, girlfriend.
Girlfriend, sorry. Yeah, sorry. So, and I know there were stories that she had tensions between Cherry and the one who played Kelly Williams, who played Laura Renzo. Laura Renzo on the podcast recently, she said it was not true, and so that with a cast like that, egos are involved. There's Hollywood, but they survived it. So I just want to give a shout out to those 2 people. But hopefully we can get a creator on this program real quick about. I don't know if you follow this account on Instagram. It's called 80s Babies. I've got the exact
I've seen it, yeah.
But I came across it the other day, and we talked about how Family Matters evolved to being this wholesome family show, but they gave you some serious episodes as well. One that came across my timeline the other day. Remember, Eddie? This was before Rodney King. Remember, Eddie got stopped by the rookie white cop that worked with Carl, and Carl had to set him straight.
Yeah, I saw that.
I think that was during the first or second season on the air.
Yeah, it was like the 5th season, I believe. I think they did that episode. And if you remember the second season, remember they wanted to do Black History Month, and of course, Laura wanted to get a Black History class at school, and of course, the N-word was posted on the locker. And I remember hearing that some of the ABC affiliates did not want to do that. They want, and I think from what I understand, that some of the affiliates actually blurred the whole word out. I know here in Chicago they actually showed the word. And but I think other affiliates they blurred it out. I think that's still the case today, in some affiliates. But also too, of course, the shooting one was just like really, and plus they used the James Bond music. That was always very weird to me. That kind of threw me off guard, but that was kind of odd. But I'll admit I didn't watch the last 3 or 4 years because the pirate episode with Urkel and Carl and the that was right in the middle of the Pirates of the Caribbean craze before the movies. But that's where I had become very popular. I was just like, that's enough for me. And that was just terrible. But of course, Jo Marie Payton left. Of course, then Judy Ann Elder came on to finish up the last year as Harriet. But and look, I like Waldo. I like how they evolved Waldo, but they didn't know what to do with they didn't know what to do with Eddie those last few years. I mean, you thought that have him be a singer. No, okay, that didn't work. Okay, fine.
Let him be a cop. Because I didn't know what to do with my life.
Yeah, that didn't work either. So I was just like, they really didn't know what to do with Eddie after that. And also, if you remember, and I think I mentioned it, we mentioned Step by Step, there was supposed to have been this big like mega finale with kind of like a crossover between Step by Step and Family Matters, but CBS saw those ratings and said, nope. Because apparently it was already written, they were just going to film it, but like I said, CBS saw those ratings and probably were like, we ain't wasting our time with this.
Yeah, and Family Matters did get the series finale that they wanted. Step by Step did not.
Yeah, so that was unfortunate there. If you guys don't check it out, before we forget, Key and Peele, if you guys remember, with Key, Michael Key and Jordan Peele, they actually did this really, very famous. This was a couple of years back at the height of their show, but they had a very famous sketch with Reginald Fell Johnson, of course, as Carl, and they had gave a little thing about what went on behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually pretty funny. So if you guys don't get a chance, check it out. Key and Peele Family Matters skit. Yeah, that's kind of like how you do it. But yeah, that was it kind of tells you all you need to know about what happened behind the scenes there. But yeah, it was a good show. I know it ran for 10 or 11 seasons.
9 years.
9 seasons. But yeah, those last 3. Nope.
On that note.
It's on Hulu. It's on. I know it's on Pluto TV and Samsung TV Plus, and it's streaming in a lot of places. I think it's on Max as well. So if you guys get a chance, check it out for all the repeats and whatnot.
All right, to wrap up Black History Month 2024, we salute the ABC/CBS TV sitcom of the 90s, Family Matters. Lakina, take us home.
All right, now I feel better. Now I let all that out. On the Twitter, X, at Kids Cooking IG.
You can follow your Shirley Sydney Brown on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80. Don't forget to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Please download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please subscribe to our podcast at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And while you're at it, please give War Media a follow at WARR Media on all social media platforms. So thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Check out Second City Sports every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, exclusively on Sports Zone Chicago. One more time, as Lakina would say, check out Second City Sports live in the living color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
And of course, catch Sports Zone Chicago anytime, anywhere on Roku TV. So if you got the Roku TV app or whatever device you got, go to your favorite Play Store. You can catch our Roku TV on that app. You can catch our show, Sean and Maya, the Smoke Fellas. I think Buzz Up Cuz. I think they're going to be on tonight, I believe. So, so you can check it. But again, if you want to catch the replays anytime, anywhere on Roku TV.
And we will provide.
All right, enjoy the college hoops as they're finishing up their regular season for some of the smaller conferences, also the NBA as well, and all the other sports. Also, spring training baseball if you're into that, and a whole lot more. Enjoy the weather and just be careful out there. I know it's supposed to rain in a lot of spots here in the next couple of days, so stay dry. And that's about it. So for Sid, I'm Lakina. This is Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, and we'll see you Friday.
Go Illini, holla!